this is an article by Sadaf Ahmed. So the article is on sexualized objects and the embodiment of honor, which is definitely about women, and it discusses basically rape in Pakistani films. And what she basically did, she looked at about 36 Pakistani films from 1947 to 2011. And she just tried to study how these films are treating rape or attempt to rape. Okay, so she thinks that the films use woman's body to develop the plot and to, you can say, to what she says that for gratuitous pleasure of the male audience sitting in the cinema, right? So let's see what she's saying. Okay. Uh, if you have, if you know, she was earlier teaching at LUMS, and then I think she has left LUMS now and went to some other place. I'm not sure where she might be. But what she's doing, that she looked at a number of Pakistani feature films that use rape as a trope or rape as a narrative device for writing, uh, or for making films. She thinks that these films incite, excuse, and normalize sexual aggression against women, and in doing so, the films support a strong rape culture. Uh, why do the films do so? She thinks that it is because patriarchy likes promoting honor-based ideologies. So films also promote the same pattern, the pre-existing pattern, which is based on honor-based ideology when it comes to women's mobility, women's bodies, and women's sexuality. So it says that films actually legitimize rape by punishing what society calls bad women. So, any other explanation that you can think of why films use rape to punish bad women? Or do you think that films only punish bad women by raping them? Can you think of a reason why films should use rape to promote rape culture or to punish bad women?
Ma'am, they think the movie sort of might present this as a reformation ka method, which is these women were not subscribing to what the traditional values are, which is staying covered or staying in the house, and hence the movie showed the worst of the worst possibility of what happens in our society if you let go of those values, and so as to also present that those values are there to protect a woman, which is why this becomes like a reformation arc of sorts unke liye.
That's very correct. That's true. So films actually try to punish women who do not follow the norms of the society. So it basically says that a rape culture is understood as something, or a film that shows rape is something which it focuses on a male sexually uh, getting aggressive with a female. So film actually supports violence against women. So the films that are actually showing rape, or films that use attempt to rape, they actually show violence against women. So such a culture links masculinity with aggression and femininity with passivity and obedience. So a male would basically be aggressive with a woman if a woman is not being obedient or passive, which also includes women should be passive in terms of mobility and also in terms of their sexual behavior. They should be passive in both ways. And if women do not follow these rules of passivity and obedience, they are punished with rape in the films. Uh, Such films objectify women and they create fetish by glamorizing rape. I hope everyone understands what fetish means. Fetish is sexualization of female body in the film. So fetish is created when female body is sexualized and male audience gets interested in the female body and rapes her or punishes her for whatever reason. So films actually create fetish around women's sexuality, and films glamorize rape. So society often ignores rapists' behavior, and films uh, try to show that rapists' behavior is linked with the desires of society because society wishes to punish bad women, and the rapist is actually the voice of society because he punishes the raped woman. This is please these are not my personal ideas. These all of these ideas are ideas belong to the author, and you are open to discuss any of the ideas. If you do not agree with them, or you even if you agree with them, it's very important that you discuss what she is saying so we can actually create a discourse or a debate on the ideas discussed in the film, right? So it's saying that the fetish is created and a woman is whole responsible for the occurrence of rape. And the society draws, or the film draws attention to women's behavior in the film and excuses the rapists. All of these cultural characteristics and beliefs encourage occurrences of rape and legitimize and normalize its existence. So, do you disagree with anything or think that she's right when she says that society legitimizes rapist behavior in the film because rapist is actually punishing the bad woman?
Yes, miss, I agree completely. And I also think that they use it as a tool to show how powerful the guy is. Like, I think there are other ways of showing it, okay, how aggressive a man is, how powerful they are. और उनकी dominance कितनी है उस equation में, in that relationship, not actually a relationship, लेकिन उस equation में उनकी उस like मर्द की कितनी power है. तो वो ultimately they use वो sexual violence as a tool to show कि अच्छा he's the powerful one and the woman is the one who needs help and who is submissive.
And Miss, I'd like to add to this that a lot of movies focus on the villain's character arc as involving the his role as a rapist, which is कि उसको villainous he his ability to be violent, or you know, it's part of his character, which also sort of dims the misogyny of the protagonist in some ways. So
Yes, I agree with that as well.
Okay. All right. So films actually tend to legitimize the rape, and by legitimizes, film normalizes rape's existence. Also by not punishing the rapist in many cases, because the focus is on woman's honor and focus is less on rapist's behavior. Uh, so when did this discussion on feminist discussion on these topics started back in 1970s, because the feminists started writing on rape culture in films, and they said that Hollywood films normalize sexual violence within society by showing rape of the woman. So women, actually feminist speakers or feminist authors started creating awareness around these issues, and which means that we have to focus on socio-cultural elements, uh, because rape's existence, if it continues in the films, rape is if it continues in the films, then rape culture also continues in the films. And patriarchal societies have always supported rape culture for hundreds of years. For instance, she says that ancient Greek myths and stories presented rape as a source of entertainment both for the rapist and for the audience, which means that when a woman was attacked, both the rapist and audience were interested in her cries and in her screams. And films always used this sexual narrative as building plot for developing plot of the film, right?
Ma'am,
So she thinks that it was there in the Greek mythologies and in the Greek theater of the past. Ji.
Ma'am, this reminds me of growing up. I used to read novels of Judith McNaught, and back then I thought that what she wrote about was um, like what she portrayed to write about was love and romance. But back then I didn't know, and now I am to read those novels again, and I've realized that it, the man, this she sexualized the man, the protagonist raping the women, and she portrayed it as like, oh, because he loved her and badne he apologized, so it's all right, or he wasn't punished at all for his behavior. In fact, the girl felt bad for him, and it was she was one of the best writers, like authors, like in the romance genre. And all of her books, not just one novel, almost all of her books had the same storyline. And the guy was this like toxic man with this like macho man, wo pura ego uska tha, and he would always like rape the women, and he'd be like glamorized for it.
Which author is this?
Judith McNaught.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You shouldn't read her book, but you should read her reviews. Now people do not take her seriously.
Okay. All right. So, what I liked about what you said just now is the mentioning of toxic masculinity, because I think toxic masculinity is an emerging theme in feminist writings, and women are increasingly discussing misogyny, and feminist writers are increasing discussing misogyny, and they have added this terminology toxic masculinity to the discussion, because I'm sure that toxic masculinity is more about rapist behavior or the attacker. And Judith Magnon may have used I can understand that she was using and rape as a device for developing narrative of her novels. And you said that in most of her novels she used the same narrative, only the characters changed, but it was more or less the same.
The storyline remained the same.
Yes, okay. So this article, Sadaf only says that popular culture and media have always played a role in reinforcing and promoting rape culture. Advertisements and fairy tales, films and magazines, gaming and porn industry have been identified as media that have utilized women and narratives that depict stereotypical gender roles. Stereotypical roles means that women should confine to the limits, and male characters can objectify female, and the films can sexualize women bodies and normalize violence against them if women were not managing their sexuality in particular. And Bollywood and Hindi language cinema and Pakistani cinema have also used rape as narrative device. And she especially mentions the 2012 incident in New Delhi. I think you may have heard of it, because there was a gang rape incident on a bus, and later a film was produced on that same gang rape.
Yes, it was a TV show.
It was a TV show on Netflix.
Ji. So it says that rape films always emphasize brutality and violence against women, and sometimes these films actually make multi-billion dollars industry that that an industry that actually survives or lives on showing violence against women's body, or repeatedly presenting women as sexual objects, or depicting violence against women. So sexual harassment or uh, gender gendered behavior is emphasized in these films, and women are particularly focused if they don't follow the norms of the society. It says that popular culture reinforces and promotes, films promote rape culture. So as I said that Sadaf actually picked up 36 films. These are both Urdu and Punjabi films from 1947 till 2011, and she is only focusing on the scenes that focus on rape of supporting characters in many cases, because protagonist actually happens to be a good woman in many cases. So films emphasize the supporting character's bad behavior, or how she violates norms of society, and therefore uh, film normalizes sexual aggression against the character who does not follow the norms of the society. So Sadaf is only looking at it how the films deal with the raped women, or how the films deal with women who have not followed the norms of society or maintained honorable status of their bodies. So if body is dishonored, she's looking at how films treat the ultimate fate of the woman who has been raped, or who has faced sexual aggression in some form, right? So she is saying that she's looking at culturally specific elements in the film. Culturally specific elements means that how films show rape, and how films show good women and bad women. And then the second half of the paper actually focuses on honor-based ideology, which means fate of the woman who has been raped. And if if you look at the whole film, you can see that raped woman did not survive in many cases, even if she was innocent. So all these treatments actually are surrounding cultural connotations, and it is a form of global violence, because even foreign films, or many films from Middle East and India, actually show the same sort of thing, same sort of treatment of raped women. So what Sadaf thinks, that she feels that a rape culture exists in Pakistani films. So that is where she concludes uh, her discussion on treatment, or on treatment of rape situations in the film. So what function does rape play in the film? Sadaf thinks that Hollywood and Bollywood, and even Muslim majority countries may use rape to develop narrative of the plays or films. She has looked at literature from Middle East and South Asia, and she thinks that these rape scenes actually serve as multifunctional tools across the globe. Multifunctional tools because they films illustrate rape scenes, and rape scenes are justified representations of female sexuality. And most rape scenes focus on regulating female sexuality. uh, Regulating female sexuality means rewarding good women and punishing bad women. So if the films reward good women and punish bad women, they give an overall message to regulate female sexuality, and which means that women who transgress sexual norms are good women in society, and women who do not who violate sexual norms are bad women. So those who violate, and they are subsequently punished by the rapist, and society often supports rapist behavior by not talking about it. And the films most often show that female sexuality actually creates a lot of anxiety in society, because if, society can actually punish family of the raped woman. Punishing family of raped woman actually means that using bad language for the family, or especially men of the family. If a woman is raped, so society actually insults the male members of the family if they are not able to regulate female members. So it means if society starts castrating men for not regulating women, or for not regulating women in their families, then this rape becomes the pretext for subsequent violence against a group. Okay, so is it clear that female sexuality creates anxiety for the society, and for especially family men who are always over concerned about women's sexuality, women mobility, and women's behavior? So women's good behavior is actually, and bad behavior can be cause of anxiety, social anxiety for family and for community at large. Do you think that women's behavior creates social anxiety, and women who cross the boundaries, they increase social anxiety and then they are punished with violence? Do you agree with this concept of social anxiety around the behavior of women?
Miss, I don't know if I would stress upon social anxiety regarding this situation. Like, and I would say that people do focus a lot on behaviors of women, and they basically stigmatize every action they do, like um their clothing, their choices, like working outside, and उसकी वजह से obviously काफ़ी ज़्यादा heated arguments usually होती हैं family में, तो that's hard to deny कि this they don't cause arguments and fights in house, because they do. And it's not because they're like what women are doing is wrong, it's just कि families focus on that so much, and वो बेसिकली दे ये पाकिस्तान में होता है कि women की चॉइसेस होती हैं उनको काफ़ी कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश करते हैं, तो whenever they deviate from that वो फिर एक लड़ाई का वो बनते हैं, लड़ाई की रीजन बन
Ma'am,
जाती हैं.
I
I
also
That,
want
feel
to
like,
जी जी, that is what she is calling
say,
social anxiety. जी.
yeah, but I feel
ma'am,
like saying,
I
yeah,
do agree with the fact that it does create social anxiety for people, because, and including other women who are looking at, women who are breaking the rules, the so-called rules this society has made for them, and the confinements they are put into. And no one likes when when their rules are broken. So it's like when they see someone going out, like I gave an example of Kandil Baloch. There weren't only men who were going against her or how she was, doing what she was doing. It was women too. They were not okay with how she was being and how she was doing things on social media, her videos and her dressing sense, everything. So it did create a certain social anxiety and a lot of, pressure around that one person who was, being the way she wanted to be. So yeah, I do agree with this idea of social anxiety existing in society.
Okay. All right. So basically, what she's saying that woman's honor becomes an expression of social anxiety, and I think Kandil Bloch's example is a perfect example for explaining the case, because she did create uh, a lot of social anxiety. Her images created social anxiety, and though she had a huge fan following, and people who were probably also, there were people who were appreciating her images, but there were also people who were uh, commenting uh, and who did not agree with her sexual behavior in terms of Pakistani culture. And Kandil very obviously was presenting herself as a Pakistani woman, and in many cases she was recognized as a bad Pakistani woman. So you can say that social anxiety that her images had created actually ended up with an ultimate fate of death uh, in Kandil's case, right? So in this paragraph, which is in front of you right now, she's saying that she is focusing on 36 on treatment of rape or attempt to rape in 36 films, and 30 films. These 36 films have 15 rapes actual, 15 actual rapes and 27 attempted rapes. So you can see that overall number of rapes in 36 films increases uh, the number 36 itself, because 13 and 27 attempted rapes and 15 rapes would actually mean 42 rapes or rape attempts altogether. So you can say these 36 films actually had 42 rapes or rape attempts. So these 36 films, she's saying that they were produced from 1947 to 2011, and they are both Urdu and Punjabi language films. Now, how did she select the films? So these films are not failures, or she's saying these are mostly silver, golden, and platinum Jubilee Pakistan films. Uh, so if anyone does not know what silver, golden, or platinum or diamond jubilee means, she has mentioned it here, that if a film has been screened in cinema for 25 weeks, it would be a silver jubilee film, and if it was screened in cinemas for 50 weeks, it would be a golden jubilee film, and if it's been screened for 75 weeks, it would be a platinum film, and if it was in cinemas for 100 weeks, it means it was a diamond jubilee film. And many of these films were actually award-winning films, and these award-winning films or best films did include 42 rape scenes in 36, or attempt to rape in 36 films altogether. And what she did, that she had watched many of these films as she was growing up, so she knew which films were showing rape scenes, and she also asked film fraternity and people around her, and that's how she created a list of 36 films that had rape scenes or attempt to rape scenes. And after that, what she did, that she just looked at, if she may have watched the 36 films, or at least she definitely watched rape scenes or attempt to rape scenes in the films, and because she was also interested in fate of the women in these films. So I'm saying that it's possible that she did watch all of these 36 films. So you can understand that in terms of research, it means it means probably 100, or more or less 100 hours of viewing films and making notes and then writing the articles. Right. So she acquired, she said she had collected this data because she was working on a larger project on gender and mainstream Pakistani cinema. Right. And films, she says that all of these 36 films actually depict men as rapists and women as the victims of rape, except one film, which is Shoaib Mansoor's film Bol, because Bol had a transgender boy who was raped. So apart from Bol, 36 films were showing women as the victims and men as rapists. Okay, so she's saying it does not mean that men are not raped, but the films are not showing male rape; they are showing women's rape. Thus, films are creating a certain type of rape culture, which is a replication of the rape culture that exists in society. So she's just talking about how films use rape as a narrative device and to titillate male audience. And most of these male audience belong to rural areas or are urban working common class, the people who work from, you can say, laborers who work from morning till evening, and then in the evening after maybe 8 to 12-hour work shifts, they go to cinemas and watch films. So she's saying that you can say when she mentions rape, using rape as for gratification or titillation, she's actually pointing to uses and gratification theory, which means that audience use cinema or images or media for gratification, some sort of gratification. So she's saying that the films actually use rape to titillate male audience and for gratification, right? So rape is a vehicle to titillate and titillate an audience that is believed to seek gratification, which is like why people go to cinemas. They go to cinemas to have some good time or for entertainment. So she's saying that rape is used as a vehicle for titillation and for gratification of male audience. And she's saying in these 36 films, it's not essential that the rape plot was mandatory. The films could actually develop the plot by avoiding rape stories, except for a few. For example, Badnaam was based on a woman, a good woman, who is raped, and that point onwards she becomes a bad woman. So sometimes, all of these actually showed social anxieties and fears surrounding women's behavior before and after marriage. Badnaam actually focuses on extramarital relationship after marriage. So woman would end up in brothel, which means rape films actually surround women's behavior. And that's why she's saying that these 36 films are promoting a certain type of rape culture. Okay. Violence is seen as sexy and sexuality as violent. So it just means in a rape culture, violence is seen as sexy because when a rapist attacks a woman, audience and the attacker both enjoy it. Okay, so that's why she's saying that violence is seen as sexy and sexuality is seen as violent. Okay, so how is it depicted in this part? Violence, rape as a gratuitous entertainment. She's saying that films show a prolonged physical struggle between a would-be rapist and a potential victim. And these films, these scenes have been there in cinema of many films, including films from Middle East and films from Turkey. The pleading cries and screams of a woman attempting to free herself and visuals of her clothes being torn in fight are standard. So films actually would include scenes that would show struggle between a male attacker and a female victim, right? So she's saying these films cannot be made without this type of scenes. And an example is Insaf Ka Tarazu from 1980. It was a very famous film of the time. And she's saying that the attacker begins with verbal and physical assaults, and she keeps on begging him, falling to his feet, and the attacker does not stop, and it ends at the rape scene. So verbal and physical assault, followed by tearing up of her clothes and making her grovel to his feet before raping her, are the standard scenes in such films. So basically in 36 films or in 42 scenes in the 36 films, you see this kind of situation that female protagonist is begging, male protagonist is attacking her. Okay, so what she says that shots, type of shot, sound effect, lighting and prop. These type of treatments are used to enhance the impact of the rape scenes. Okay, so I think I'm not sure if I mentioned it in your class, but I did say what I mean here is that you can use a close up with a long shot or a wide shot, and you use all kind of sounds, sound effects and lighting and props to enhance uh, this kind of violent scene or rape scene. I hope you understand what shots mean. If you don't, then I can slightly explain at this point what film language and grammar means. Ji.
Miss, like, but the function of those scenes in Saaf Ka Tarazu was very different than what is conventionally or was shown at that time. And other than that, like, this is actually a question. I don't know if you've watched this Netflix series movie called Bulbul, but there's this one particular scene of violence that was immensely triggering because it was actually very awful because उसे फिल्माया भी इस तरह से गया था कि with all the lighting and the scene of violence was dramatized in that movie. So in comparison to a movie created in 2020 and released in 2020 and one created in 1970s, I personally think the ones that are shown now are more grotesque in the violence that they show because that because it's उस time पे फिर भी थोड़ी सी concealment की एक pressure होता था, but now I feel like they show it even in a worse manner, which is probably unnecessary.
All right. So Sadaf is also saying the same thing, that in many cases the scene was unnecessary because if they wanted, they could develop the plot without that particular scene. But films do use all kind of, you can say that scenes may be grotesque in many cases because I think I'm not particularly looking for the scene, but it can, you can say, I haven't, I think if you can actually, I think, watch it on YouTube because it's available there. I was talking about short sound effects and lighting and props. So sound effects actually means that there would be uh, three types of, in fact, more types of sound, which means diegetic and non-diegetic sounds. So diegetic is sound that is coming from within the frame, from the images inside the frame. For example, if you are here, you can see two characters and you can see them talking. So you can say that source of sound is inside the frame. So if these two people are talking, you can see them as well. So if you can see the source of sound, then you are talking about diegetic sound. And if you cannot see the source of sound, then you are talking about non-diegetic sound, which means that if, while these two people are talking and if you can hear the shower or water dropping sound while these people are talking, like when she's standing outside and the sister is inside the bathroom, and if you can hear sound while she's talking to her, you are listening to non-diegetic sound, which means the sound of shower, because you cannot see shower here. You see shower here, so here it is diegetic sound. But if you see, diegetic sound is the type of sound where you can see the source of sound. Okay. If in the other shot, if you are not, if you can still hear the shower sound, it is non-diegetic. All right. So the films can use uh, any other type of sound that you can think of. Like apart from voices of people, can you think of any other type of sound? Right now, we discussed sound effect like shower sound. Can you think of any other sound apart from sound effects and voices?
Um, Ma'am, do we include the sounds of that are, let's say, created by objects falling or being thrown in this, because that was a prevalent concept in these scenes? There would be a lot of like इस तरह से objects गिराना and चीजें तोड़ना, and like it
Yes,
would be spread throughout the room.
right. So that would be part of sound effect. Okay. So if you can, if you see an object falling, if you can see the object, then it is diegetic sound. If you don't see the object but hear the sound of object falling down, then you would say that it was non-diegetic. And diegetic if you can see the object, non-diegetic if you don't see the object. Okay.
But I think it could. I'm not sure if it comes under sound effects. Like it's usually at a time when
Okay, so we can understand that this is the attack scene, right? Because he's actually attacking here. I said that it is diegetic if you can see the source that is creating the sound, right? For example, she screamed just now and you can see her face. So you can say that it is diegetic sound because you can see the source of sound. Sound is coming out of her mouth when she's screaming. But you are also hearing objects falling, right? So you can also hear music here. Did you hear music?
Yes, ma'am.
yes,
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is non-diegetic sound because you can't see the instrument, right? So all I was saying that two main types of sound are diegetic and non-diegetic sound. Here you can see him attacking her and you can hear music. So music is non-diegetic. All Sadaf said that sound, lighting and types of shots are used and also editing is used to enhance the impact of a rape scene. So this is a long shot. From this long shot, from long shot to this close up, right? So you can see that long shot and close up together are used to enhance the impact of the scene. All right, long shot, close up and close shot of this dagger in his hand. So right now, right here, you saw three different close-ups. Male's close-up, woman's close-up, and close shot of this dagger in his hand. And you can see that music is also constantly changing. You can see the light in his eyes and the light on his forehead, and overall the light is used to enhance the impact of the expression on the rapist's face and the impact of the expression on the victim's face, right? So here you see a mid shot, right? A mid shot is a shot in which you can see both the face and shoulders of the person. So you can see right now we have seen at least three types of shots, which are close up, long shot, and mid shot. And this is two shot. This shot is taken from over her shoulder. So from over her shoulder, you also see both the victim and the rapist in the scene. So two shot is also used to enhance the impact. You can see this mirror in the background, it is broken. So overall, the mise-en-scène of film is used to enhance the impact of the rape scene or the attempt to rape scene, right? Let's go back to what Sadaf is saying. She's saying that short sound effects, lighting, and props. So I hope you understand what I mean by props. We saw a dagger, we saw her carrying a chair to hit him with the chair, and a lot of other things that both the male and female protagonist, the attacker and the victim, keep dropping or keep using to enhance the impact of the scene. So what Sadaf is saying that the way the treatment of the film creates lust, and sexual assault becomes a license for exhibition of sexual acts or nudity, uh, which means, this scene actually did not focus on nudity, but it did show her her close up or mid shot while she was taking a bath. I think you could see her face, and you could also see her uh, shoulders, right? So it did use, and apart from that, you can see that in this scene here, her dress near the shoulder is already torn. It was visible in the scene. I'm not sure if you noticed it, but it is already before reaching this point. Her dress is already torn on her back near the shoulder. See, the dress is already torn. That's why I was saying that this is a kind of prop. They know what to do with the prop at this stage, and she's attacking him, and you could see lamp was also uh, it wasn't stable anymore, and you could see a lot of disturbance in the scene. So what she's saying that all of these things are used to create an association between lust and sexual assault, and it becomes a license for exhibition of sexual acts or nudity, because if you're showing a rape scene, you will be actually showing all these things, and it increases objectification of women in the scene, because by now the audience would be excited. So it means that you are objectifying woman's body or woman's behavior, and through the objectification of woman, you are actually reinforcing a rape culture. Uh, she thinks that these types of scenes were increasingly visible, and this was more visible after the fall of Dhaka, because Pakistani films market was reduced. Uh, we could not we could not show films in East Pakistan anymore because it became Dhaka or Bangladesh. And because our market size was reduced, so many filmmakers felt that sexual assault was something that they could use for attracting or the audience to cinemas. So it says here that these filmmakers did not have proper storylines. Pakistan film industry produced a number of highly acclaimed productions and solid storylines and strong female characters uh, in after 1947. But after 1970s, the films faced a demise, and rape scenes increased because of the loss of East Pakistan, filmmakers losing access to a significant number of investors. It means that not only we lost the audience after liberation of Dhaka or after fall of Dhaka. I mentioned it before that we call it fall of Dhaka, and Bangladeshis call it, Bangladesh citizens call it liberation from Pakistan, right? So for us, it is fall, and for them, it is liberation. Okay, so what she's saying that because the number of investors had decreased and number of viewers had decreased, so Pakistani films started adding rape scenes or attempt to rape scenes because they thought sensationalization is something that could be used. Sensationalism can be used to attract audience to the cinemas. Um, she is discussing Bhutto's Roti, Kapda and Makan policy here. You may have heard it that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto used Roti, Kapda and Makan as his political motto to get vote of people at large. But after Bhutto or during Bhutto's period, because we had already lost market of East Pakistan for screening our films. So this trend of adding rape scenes had started in this era. She's also saying this because of Pashto horror films, because in Pakistan, in 1970s, Pakistan started producing Pashto films, and many Pashto films included rape scenes or attempt to rape scenes. And she's saying Pashto horror cinema was focusing on this kind of victim. And after Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, frequency of violence against women increased tremendously. She also mentioned the same Punjabi trio, जो कि I think we had discussed that Sarmat Sehbai and Rafat had said that Punjabi films are relying on a trio of dirty dancer, vulgar comedian, and a very strong villain. So Punjabi films were actually using the trio, and trio films often included rape scenes. So these films actually infused violence with action, right? So she's actually talking about that post 1970s films, and especially the films that were produced after Zia had infused action with violence of female bodies, and many Punjabi films of these era actually included rape scenes. Okay. These scenes, because they started including dirty dances, so they used dirty dances, songs, rape scenes, and semi-nude actresses. That actually became the cause of these rape-oriented plots. So if you were showing these women, there was sufficient reason to show violence against their bodies. Okay, so she's saying that after fall of Dhaka, violence became a staple. Violence was used as a trope in many of the films. And when Ziaul Haq in particular established the martial law system, and he ordered to destroy all films like pre-Ziaul Haq films, because he felt that pre-Ziaul Haq films were full of immorality. So Ziaul Haq actually cancelled censorship licenses of films before 1979 on grounds of morality. He destroyed many films altogether because he thought they were cheaply made productions. They were and they had plagiarized content from India. So he had reason of immorality for destroying films produced before him. But basically, rape did not disappear after Ziaul Haq from film. In fact, its number increased tremendously because cinema had lost audiences and cinema had lost market and investors. Therefore, gratuitous involvement in the form of violence and sexually explicit scene became very common. So she's saying it started during Bhutto era, but you will see it more in Zia era films because investors had disappeared, and filmmakers were relying more and more on sex scenes for attracting audience to the cinemas. Ji, any comment? All right. So she's saying that after Zia took over, During 1980s, rape became a recurring trope in most of Pakistani films, Punjabi and Pashto in particular, because if you look at films from 1970s to 1990s, that includes Bhutto era as well, but frequency was higher during Zia era. uh, she's saying 1970s and 90s based on her own sample of 36 films. She's saying that she picked up these films from uh, these 36 films from start from 1947, and she stops at 2011. I think that would be the time she may have collected data for this article. She published this article 3 years later, but we can see that her sample includes Punjabi and Pashto films. And that's why she's saying that these films are full of rape and attempt to rape scenes, uh, when graphic and drawn out, regardless which language the film is produced in. It doesn't mean the film is in Pashto, Punjabi, or Urdu language. The films, these 30 films, focused on a specific aim to satisfy a voyeuristic male gaze, right? So she's saying that the objective of these 36 film is to satisfy the male gaze by creating a voyeur. So voyeur is created by including rape scenes or attempt to rape scenes because audience becomes interested in the scene. Is it clear? So she's actually talking about three films produced in 3 different languages. In fact, Sindhi films had also included rape scenes. For example, Hakim Khan is a Sindhi film in which a woman goes to Hakim Khan's wife leaves his home and she goes to his enemy. The wife is pregnant, and I was talking to a Sindhi author. She's a poet, she is a drama script writer, screenwriter, Atiya Dawood, and she's been she's been writing for the past 40 years. Initially, she was writing columns on women's stories. Her focus was women. She did it for over 20 years before Hum TV hired her to write stories of women, and Hum TV. She worked for Hum TV for about 6 years. So overall, she has worked for about 40 years, and now she writes independently for many channels. And her focus is women's stories and women films. So I was talking to her. She thinks that Hakim Khan is actually a Punjabi film coated with the Sindhi culture, which means artists are wearing Sindhi dresses, artists are speaking Sindhi language, but it does not look like a proper Sindhi film because she thinks that the film does not represent Sindhi culture properly. She thought it was a Punjabi formula film with the Sindhi coating. Okay, so Hakim Khan's wife leaves him. And in Sindhi culture, if women go to the enemy's house, enemy actually stops attacking the enemy, and especially if women request to the enemy to stop taking on animosity generation after generation, which means that stop killing and stop, we believe that this culture continues for generations. But Sindhi culture says that if women come from the enemy's family and say that stop this long-term animosity, Sindhis actually end the animosity. And Sindhis do feel that Sindhi and Balochi cultures are also different because the Balochis actually ask for women of the enemy's family, in return for, you know, like जिसको हम खून बहा या कसास and diyat कहते हैं. So if there are two families that become each other's enemies, one family actually gives his women to the enemy, and the enemy accepts them as wives in the enemy's family, right? So this animosity, these women suffer badly for a generation, but their children are actually first cousins after a generation. So this animosity cannot go on generation after generation, because you have already faced bad fate because you had to give your women to the enemy, and these women are actually accepted in nikah sort of thing. So Sindhi and Balochi culture, so there might be subtle differences from Punjab to Sindh and to Balochistan, and we know that these provinces share borders between them. So we can see that culture actually changes from Punjab to Sindh to Balochistan. So that's why Atiya Daud thinks that Hakim Khan is actually a Punjabi film with a Sindhi coating, because it's a Punjabi formula film and it does not properly represent the Sindhi culture. When this woman goes to enemy's house, she's pregnant and she has a son. She gives birth to a daughter and the enemy raises the daughter. So Hakim Khan eventually abducts enemy's daughter, not knowing that it is his own daughter. And before Hakim Khan can actually rape his own daughter, which a Pakistani film will not allow, Hakim Khan's enemy saves, Hakim Khan, the enemy actually saves the daughter from his father. Okay, so you can see that Hakim Khan is a film that is actually including a rape scene. So Sadaf is only talking about Punjabi, Pashto, and Urdu films, but Sindhi films have also included rape scenes, and I believe Hakim Khan was a super hit film in the sense that Hakim Khan actually saves a daughter getting raped from the father by the end of the film. Right, so I think Pakistani films will also avoid incest in various forms. That is another reason, and films have to have some sort of resolution. And in Hakim Khan's case, uh, when Hakim Khan saves the daughter from her father, the film actually ends at father repenting that he was so bad that he did not realize that he had mistreated his wife, and now he was attacking his own father. So you can see that in the end, the film gives a good message and also saves the daughter from the father. So overall message was fine. Many rapes and attempted rapes in films uh, show similar aim, like to please the audience and to give an overall message about women's sexuality, how they should behave. Sadaf has mentioned a film here. She says that Zid and Daku Rani have similar kind of stories. Also, what you said, Judith Menon had similar stories. In Zid, 1991, there are two sisters. Zeba plays the role of good sister, and Babra Sharif plays the role of bad sister. A bad sister who is she is subjected to a number of rape attempts, and she is held prisoner in a brothel, right? So while she's in brothel, the film is actually including 4 attempts to rape, and in those 4 attempts you see elaborate struggles, screams for help, and attackers' overall enjoyment. 2 of 4 attempt rapes in Dakurani also have similar pattern, which means by pattern she means that screaming for help and attackers' enjoyment, overt enjoyment, right? So she's saying that victim will scream for help and attacker will be happy, and thus this kind of depiction is directly connected to the imagined male gaze. So she's saying that the minute you start showing this, the male audience in the darkness of the theater will be watching the scene very, very closely, right? So she's saying the way it is presented and portrayed, violence becomes a source of entertainment and serves to objectify and dehumanize women. So in the end, when the attacker attacks Fari, the scene is dehumanizing, or as you said earlier, grotesque, because it actually is developing violence against women. Here, Sadaf is quoting Sarah Projansky, right? Sarah Projansky is one of the early authors who started studying rape in Hollywood films, right? And she said these rape scenes are uh, included in overwhelming numbers, and rape generates narrative action in the film. So films actually focus on creating or developing narrative against the rape, and rape is used as a source of pleasure. Uh, and then she says that these films, if you look at these scenes, they collectively explain rape's frequent occurrence in the film because narrative is based on rape. So it means that rape will continue appearing and reappearing in the films. And it is filmmakers' decision to further the plot, uh, fulfilling this condition of showing rape and screaming victim and a pleased attacker. So she's saying when you create these conditions for the victim and the attacker, it normalizes the function of the rape in the film. Then she gives the example of Molajat. Molajat includes a 2-minute long film, 2-minute long scene in which you can see that a girl is running away and the villain's brother Makhanat is following her on a horse. The girl is running through the village. She is, I think we can see this scene here because in Molajat, the film opens with this attempt to rape scene. Molajat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La taqnatu min rahmatullah. अल्लाह की रहमत से नाउमीद मत हो। हक बाहू बेशक बाहू एक नजर करम दी तक बाहू। कुंतु कंजन नज़तो और नूरी
You can see, it starts with some sort of holy verses and highlighting that, what he said, ke Allah ke karam se mayus na ho, So it's very indicative what kind of scene might be coming up, and after showing or hearing, it's pointing to help that can come from God. It shows this kind of you can see the bird flying in the air. So it's a symbolic representation in terms of holy verses, and also in terms of the bird, the bird, helpless bird that we are seeing here. It's 2 minutes long. It's quite long actually.
साड़ी तो कुछ दी उम्र पर आवाज नहीं है देखो ये क्यों वर्गे नहीं दसो वे तीर बन के फरियाद करा ये कैन बन के बैठ मामा
तू सिर्फ इना दस दे कि तेरा सिर नंगा केने गिरा
नूरी नस्ते परा माखे ने
ये मौत साडे सिर ते क्यों ले आई है असि ये खिलाफ कुछ नहीं कर सकते क्या दफा हो जा सोच की रही है चली जा तू
सोच रही हूँ.
So by now she is asking for everybody's help, right? And these villagers have actually refused to help her because they think that she has brought death to them in Maka's form, right? So everybody refuses. So you can see that the film actually use attempt to rape as the pretext. And also at this point film actually introduces the protagonist because Maula Jat appears and he saves the girls from Makhanat. So film is actually using rape as a pretext to open the film, right? It says that Maula Jat ran in cinema for 2 years. So you can imagine that 2 years actually mean more than 100 weeks because if it was showing in one cinema, you would say 52 weeks and 52 weeks of, like 104 weeks will be there just if it was showing in one cinema. You could say that it was a Diamond Jubilee film because it was in cinemas for 2 years. But as a matter of fact, film fraternity calculates numbers quite differently. Because if it was showing in 2 cinemas for 2 weeks, it will be 2 weeks, not one. 2 cinemas for 2 weeks actually means 4 weeks altogether, because Diamond Jubilee for 100 weeks actually means showing in one cinema for 100 weeks. So as a matter of fact, if it is showing for for example, if it is showing in Islamabad, Lahore and Karachi simultaneously, you would say the film has completed 3 weeks in 1 week just by showing in 3 cinemas in Lahore, Karachi and Islamabad. I hope you understand what I mean, that how weeks are calculated, because weeks are calculated based on number of cinemas. That's why sometimes you will read that film was exhibited for 300 weeks or 400 weeks or 500 weeks, because they are adding up weeks of screening all over the country or wherever in the world. Do you understand what I mean by the number calculation? Though I said that for Maula Jat it would be straight 104. If it was showing in one cinema for 2 years, it would still mean 104. And if it was showing Lahore, if it was showing in Lahore, Karachi and Islamabad non-stop in a particular cinema for 1 year, you'll end up with 300 weeks, more than 300. You'll end up with about over 150 weeks in a year if it was showing at least in 3 cinemas. Okay, so it says that the film begins with the attempted rape of a village girl. Makhanat follows her on horseback. She runs away continuously, and he follows her for two minutes. You can see that for quite some time, the film actually shows her wearing a dupatta. She's fully covered. And I think it was the dupatta scene is there for more than 20 seconds or so. It's quite long because she's running and you're cutting between dupatta and the bird scene. So that's why she's saying that it's the language of the film that is enhancing the impact of rape culture. Uh, then the most famous protagonist of Punjabi cinema, Maula Jatt, rescues her at the end of 2 minutes. So basically, Makha attempts to abduct the girl to fulfill what she says his nefarious desires. And this becomes a pretext of hero's introduction into the film. So that's why I'm saying one pretext is opening the film with the rape scene, and the second pretext is the entry of the hero, because Maula Jatt enters the scene to rescue the girl or to help her. So rape films are actually using rape as a pretext and pretext for entering the protagonist in the film. The male protagonist rescues the female protagonist in Diya or Tufan as well. Diya or Tufan is a Pakistani film, and Playboy 1978. Both of these films use the pretext for the women to fall in love. So she's saying women actually fall in love with the rescuer, right? So one pretext is using rape for the entry of the male protagonist, and also a reason for the female to fall in love with her rescuer. So the girl who Maula Jatt says falls in love with Maula Jatt. So the films are actually using, so rape films are using rape romance trajectory, right? So rape romance is one type of treatment, and rape revenge is another type of treatment. So she is mentioning two types of treatment that are very obvious in these two films, rape films. So these films tend to show acts of sexual violence, irrespective of the thing that these acts are completed or not. But these films use rape rescue romance trajectory or rape revenge trajectory. So rape rescue is one kind of narrative treatment, and rape revenge is another kind of narrative treatment that these two films show. Please note that she's focusing on her own sample of 36 films. So if 36 films up till 2011 are showing this kind of treatment, it means that most films are actually showing this kind of treatment, and there would be some space for coming up new sort of treatment in future. So she's saying that Maula Jatt helps in developing the plot. Rape, sexual violence helps in developing the plot for Maula Jatt, right? And even in this kind of romance films, there could be a subgenre at time, like rape revenge subgenre has existed. She mentions French film Irreversible and the American film I Spit on Your Grave as two examples of rape revenge films, right? So Maula Jatt is an example of rape rescue romance film, right? And I Spit on Your Grave is a rape revenge film. She's saying that the female protagonist in Irreversible and in I Spit on Your Grave these films fuel the revenge plot, right? So women actually take the revenge in both in rape revenge films quite often, and I think I mentioned different sort of protagonists or in Pakistani films. In one of my last lectures, I said that Pakistani films have Chui Mui Girl and 5 typical types of Punjabi Jattis. One Punjabi Jatti is like is very traditional, like the protagonist in Urdu films. So the first would be traditional Punjabi girl, like we have a traditional Urdu speaking girl in Urdu films. So Punjabi, I explained the difference between the two. I said that characters like Shamimara do not make an eye contact with the male protagonist. Characters like Shamimara, when they do not make an eye contact with the male protagonist, they offer the pleasure to the male viewer and the protagonist, pleasure of male gaze, right? So the woman is looking down, offering the male protagonist to look at her because she's not making an eye contact. So the person making the male on the other side will look at her, right? He can look at her face. He has the freedom. She says, "I am going." I said, It looks like she says, "I'm doing my job looking down, and you can do your jobs looking at me." So this is a different kind of pleasure that she offers, as opposed to Shamim Mara kind of characters in Urdu films. We did watch a clip of Pate Khan 1955, I think. And in Pate Khan, do you remember the clip that I had shown you in from Pate Khan? Noor Jahan and her gang, uh, they are walking in the village. So as opposed to the protagonist of Urdu film who was inside the boundaries of wall, a Punjabi traditional woman would be shown walking through the village with her friends. So she's basically independent. She's very traditional but independent. Do you remember the character? मैंने आपको यहाँ से एक See, so this is the female protagonist, Punjabi Jatti from Punjabi films. I said she's very different from the female protagonist of Urdu films that were produced in the past, which means 1960s and 1970s Urdu cinema promoted characters who did not make an eye contact with the elderly and men. This is a traditional Punjabi girl. You think she's not making an eye contact? She is very confident. Right? So it's very clear that just look at her style. She's holding a stick, and the stick, she has put it behind her neck. She's holding the stick with both her hands. This is the type of body language that an Urdu speaking girl from Urdu cinema will never have, you know. But both the Chui Mui girl and this traditional Punjabi girl, they both stick to their norms and culture. So she looks very confident. You can see that Noor Jahan is walking through the village with a group of perhaps 15 to 20 girls. It's a large group, and she's making fun of Alauddin, who is part of the triangle, because Noor Jahan is not interested in him. Alauddin is Chaudhary, Chaudhary's son. So Alauddin is definitely a rich guy, and by the standard of the village. But Noor Jahan is not interested in him. Noor Jahan is interested in Aslam Parvez, who happens to be a protagonist in this film, though Aslam Parvez repeatedly played antagonist roles in many films after, I would say, after 1950s. He played antagonist roles very well. So Punjabi, this woman is very traditional. And I also mentioned Heer, who is also a Punjabi Jatti, but she's very different from Noor Jahan. Noor Jahan is very traditional, while Heer follows her desires. She has a premarital relationship and postmarital relationship with Ranjha, and he is somebody who leaves her husband for Ranjha. So though Heer is not raped, she becomes a symbol of, she symbolizes woman's mobility, and her right to sexuality. So that is another reason he faces death towards the end of the story. He dies or she faces honor killing. All right. Though I don't think that Heer Ranjha is considered one of I think people generally love this character Heer and Ranjha. People love these characters, completely forgetting that she faces honor killing. Then she mentions Hasina Atom Bomb, which is a very famous Pashto film. And she says that in this Pashto film, Musarrat Shaheen is playing the main female protagonist who is gang raped, right? And for the remainder of the film, it's she's gang raped on her wedding night, and for the remainder of the film, she's playing the role of the Avenger. So what she was saying earlier that films have either uh, rape rescue romance trajectory or they are rape revenge films. So I'm saying that her 36 films, her sample of 36 actually showed this kind of two types of narratives. One was rape rescue romance and the other was rape revenge film. Okay, so she said that both of these films, that both types of films actually use rape to create scopophilic pleasure for the male spectator. So films are actually using fetish and films are actually using scopophilia to create pleasure for the male audience. I'm sure that psychology students do understand these terminologies, do you? Fetish and scopophilia. And I hope that rest of you also
Yes.
understand.
Can you explain scopophilia, please?
It's just that when male audience watches the rape scene on the screen, as I mentioned before, that audience is hooked to the screen in the darkness of the theater. The male viewer and the screen, male viewer has a one-to-one relationship or primary relationship with the screen in the darkness of the theater, which means he does not stay aware of other people who are sitting next to him, right? His complete focus is on the screen. So while through male protagonist, the male viewer gets control of the woman in the diegesis. Diegesis means film, environment, etc. So if films are showing women being raped or facing attempt to rape, it's the sexual pleasure that the audience gets. So scopophilia basically focuses on this type of sexual pleasure. Okay, so films actually create attract audience through scopophilic interest. So it just says that scopophilia describes a person's deriving aesthetic pleasure from looking at something or looking at someone. So in this case, he is looking at sexual pleasure. So looking at and looking basically is the key. Like aesthetic pleasure or the pleasure is derived from this kind of action or as I said before, sexual gratification. So scopophilia is created at this point through objectifying the woman. Okay. So it says a person's deriving aesthetic pleasure from looking at something. And it basically concerns the sexual pleasure. All right, so eroticism and eroticism is the key part of, or it says nude body or fetish is used for creating scopophilia. Okay, so looking at sexual images is part of scopophilic pleasure or sexual gratification by looking at this kind of images. And she's saying revenge plan is also used for creating scopophilia. Okay. Um, she says that, Sadaf says that female as avenger actually challenges the male gaze, because female avenger, when she takes revenge, she is actually challenging the monopoly, male monopoly, or she is challenging passivity. She's not performing a passive role because she is an avenger. She's very active. She was passive in the part of the film where she was an innocent girl. But after, after the attack or after rape, because she becomes female avenger, she is no longer passive. She is active. She is reacting to controlling male gaze. She challenges the male gaze, and she is challenging the treatment of women as objects because she's taking revenge. Okay, so basically, she's saying that film theorists do think that female avenger challenges the norm, androcentric controlling gaze of male, because she is not following the rapist's or society's instructions anymore. She's an avenger. She did not die. Okay. Because women may die in most cases after the attempted rape attempt or rape attempt as such. So she's saying that rape or attempted rape are used as narrative devices to normalize sexual assault against women and sensationalize the content of the film. And because she was talking about Pashto film Hasina Atom Bomb, she's saying that rape serves to objectify women, and in doing so, it serves as a giddy masculine concoction. Okay, but at the same time, these female Avenger films display women's agency and in fighting back. I hope everybody understands what agency means here. Agency means that women became in charge of their decisions that point onward. Because they are agencies, because they are avengers, they have the agency, they have the power to make to make decisions and the power to decide what to do with the rapist. So female avenger films or rape revenge films actually display women's agency, because these women are no longer passive women and they become in charge of the action. So these films actually show women's agency, while a film like Kaidi, I mean, a film, we watched Shamimara's scene from that film earlier. So those films are actually not focusing on women's agency because Shamimara surrenders to the needs of the male protagonist in the film, while revenge films are actually displaying women's agency because they become in charge of their matters after the rape. So these films show women passive in the earlier part, and as they start taking revenge from the rapist in the rest of the film, so these films actually show display of women's agency by showing them fight back with the rapist.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Ji?
Ma'am, like when we talk of agency, so obviously any presentations of subsequent events after rape should also include healing from it, and there's also this thing that these movies show the female agency in a very masculine sense, in the sense that it's dramatized that they're getting revenge वगैरह, जबकि they don't show the forms of healing that are required or take place after an event as traumatic such as rape. So
Okay, you're absolutely right, because healing is an essential part of such films. Though I can say that healing is something that Sadaf is not discussing right now. She has not mentioned healing in her paper, but healing is definitely a part of. I would say these rape revenge films, because this strong desire to have the energy and to fight back, I think is part of the healing narrative. You can say that the females who fight back must be the protagonists of these films, uh, in one way or the other. For example, Phulan Devi, uh, she takes revenge from her rapists. She gets married at the age of 8. That's an Indian film from 1990s. So you can also say, and that is probably the first film to show a full nude, because Phulan Devi, she walks in front of whole village in the film. And when this film was produced, I think Indians reacted very, very strongly to the exhibition of nudity. And I believe that the protagonist of Phulan Devi had entered the film world through this film for the first time, and it was a super hit film. She has worked in many other films later, but in many films she performed supporting roles after Phulan Devi. But you can say that importance of Pakistani films actually highlight or emphasize importance of women's role in maintaining the integrity of the family or home. So when we mentioned social anxiety earlier, it's more about family and home, because if women cannot maintain or if they cannot perform their proper roles, or if they cannot maintain their, if they cannot maintain health of maintain respect of their physical bodies, they are disturbing the home, they are disturbing the family. So she's saying that these films actually show that women's uh, role is very important in maintaining integrity of the family or the home, and this implies to the state government at large, because if women cannot maintain respect of their bodies, their family will be disturbed, their home will be disturbed, their community will be disturbed, and which means you cannot create a stable society. If women misbehave, they cannot create a stable society, and they are part of the society. They are a unit in the society. So she's saying that ultimately it becomes government's responsibility to legitimize everything, a logic that simultaneously elides any government's responsibility, that we have rules for morality and decency, and we also have laws for morality and decency. because if women cannot maintain integrity of their body, they cannot integrate the family, and if they poorly perform their role, then home and society and everything will be disturbed. So women are expected to maintain the structure of society by performing their roles as mothers, wives, and daughters, and it includes that they should restrain from sexual independence. Okay, so she's saying that for maintaining integrity of family, home, and country, it is important that women restrain from their sexual independence, and this is a message that all of these films give. Okay, so rape films are actually showing that women should restrain from sexual independence for maintaining integrity of the family, home, and society and country at large. So these films are focusing on regulation of women's mobility, sexuality, and morality through social practice, right? Through laws and ordinance, and it's a crucial component of the social order. Can you see I have highlighted this quote here? She's saying the regulation of women's mobility and sexuality morality through social practice, through laws, ordinance remains a crucial component of social order. So the film narrative actually focuses on good women and bad women, good women who are rewarded for performing for good behavior, and bad women who are punished through rape for violating sexual norms. So when they don't restrain their sexuality or fail in in playing their role in creating a stable society, they are punished through rape in films. So ultimately, it is saying that women's regulation of women's sexuality is important for maintaining social order in the in the society. Any question? Okay. After that, she gives example of Shabab Kiranvi. So you may have heard of Shabab Studios on Multan Road. Sayyid Noor has his studios there. I think all of these studios or all of this land belonged to Shabab Kiranvi earlier, and Shabab's family partly sold some land of Shabab Studios to Sayyid Noor. They have two studios there. One studio, Sayyid Noor uses one studio for making his own films, and the second studio is locked by Geo Television. I think they were paying rent to Geo TV. Geo TV started paying rent to Shabab's family, and in this manner, that studio was not used for producing films by anybody else. It means studio was actually locked, and Geo TV was neither using studio itself or letting anybody else make films there because they were paying the rent. All right. So it just says कि Shabab Kiranvi often used this same strategy of rewarding good women and punishing bad women through rape. He had created this kind of formula, and to show women punished if they break up from the family or they did not prioritize family in every respect. So women are expected to maintain social order. So if they are not maintaining social order and they are bad women, they are worthy of punishment. So she mentions film Badnaam 1966. You may have heard this story because in Badnaam 96, it's produced on Sadaf Hassan Manto's novel, and main character Hamida is a poor man's wife who keeps complaining about their poverty and begins coveting a pair of gold earrings. So the landlord actually invites her, and he takes advantage of her love for jewelry, and he lures her into his flat. He rapes her and then leaves her with a pair of jhumkas. I think probably later a film was produced with the title Jhumka as well. But the first film was Badnaam because the rapist actually uh, builds the narrative on her greed or on her desire for a pair of jhumkas, you know. So when she's raped, she's punished her for her behavior. Her husband leaves her and he takes away the daughter with him. So for the rest of the film, we only watch what happens to a bad woman after, or a greedy woman who wanted a pair of jhumkas, even if she is raped outside her wish. But she had this desire for jhumkas. So the landlord, when the husband leaves with the daughter, and she goes back to the landlord and asks him to marry her, but the landlord says you are not worthy of being anybody's wife. So landlord actually sells Hamida to a brothel, and she spends rest of her life in the brothel. So Sadaf says that to the level Hamida is punished in this film is an illustration of the importance given to a woman's role in making a home. Hamida actually failed in creating a strong home because she fell for jhumkas. And the rapist ironically serves as the voice of society and voice of society that this greedy woman actually deserved the rape. So Hamida goes to him to return the jhumkas. So when she goes to the rapist to return the jhumkas, he says, "You haven't just sold yourself, you have also sold your future. You have sold your marriage and motherhood." And the rapist is telling this to her because her husband has left her and he took away their daughter with him, right? So now Hamida is all by herself, and the rapist is saying all these things to her. He says, "I would not keep you with me because the walls of my house will never trust you. I would not make you my wife because you came here deceiving your husband." His derision and the message are clear. Any behavior that threatens the family is worthy of harsh, immediate punishment. So the rapist is punishing Hamida, and rapist is the voice of society at this point, as he is punishing Hamida, and which means that if she desired gold jhumkas, she deserved immediate punishment, and the rapist has actually punished her for falling for jhumkas. Okay, so it says that the medium of film is used to valorize the women as wives and mothers, while those who do not meet the standard behavior are punished in a variety of ways. So, this is how Hamida is punished here. Rape becomes an effective tool of punishment, uh, and because of the physical and emotional violation that are part and parcel of this act of violence, but also because the rape instigates another set of negative consequences. So, first of all, uh, violence because she's raped, and she's saying that after the rape, the story doesn't end because rape instigates other negative consequences, which means Hamida is sold, and she spends the rest of her life in a brothel, which she deserved, as she did not follow the norms of the family or society. She could not integrate into that, right? So she's saying that patriarchal societies actually divide women into good and bad women, women who are obedient, women who are willing to sacrifice their desires, which in this case, Hamida does not sacrifice her desire for jhumkas. So, domestication is very important, and a certain lack of independence is very important. If female protagonists should lack mobility, they should lack desire for gold or jhumkas. They should not be greedy. They should be willing to satisfy their desires. And if they do not have these qualities, then they need to be punished, right? So these desires actually tell that women deserve, good women deserve reward by society, and bad women need punishment from the society. And rapist actually is the voice of the society who punishes the raped woman. Right, so she's saying that woman's morality is consistently questioned along with her sexual behavior, right? So the difference between good and bad women is actually based on their sexual behavior. Good women are modest and only sexually active within the limits of their marriage. And Hamida was active outside the limits of her marriage, so she's a bad woman. So bad women are active outside the bounds of marriage, engaging in premarital and extramarital relationships. So here Ranjha shows here as a bad woman who is sexually active outside the bounds of marriage, before and after the marriage, and Badnaam is actually showing Hamida, who is active outside the bounds of marriage after her marriage, because she sleeps with the, or you can say the landlord rapes her, uh, taking advantage of her desire for the chumkas. So even if she becomes, even if she is sexually active outside her desire, uh, she went into the landlord's house who raped her. Okay, so she's saying that another part of this is because women's sexuality is connected to, is a product of patriarchal society. It ensures paternity in a context, like women's sexuality is an important question because of paternity, and paternity is based along patrilineal lines, and inheritance is also an important part of it. So when women break these rules, they are actually challenging paternity and the laws of inheritance that naturally connect to patriarchal societies and expectations of patriarchy. It's she's saying that Muslim female sexuality being perceived as a force so strong that even at many places women are called fitna or chaos within society. So I think you may have heard of it, because people, when religious adherents in particular, when they talk about women, they can mention that औरत जो है वो fitna covered उसके लिए इस्तेमाल करते हैं, and they can say they can be responsible for creating chaos in society. So which means that women not only disturb their homes, disturb their families, but they also disturb their societies. Women's sexuality is framed as a threat that needs to be controlled to maintain the social order. Okay, so everything is connected to patriarchal requirements, laws of patrilineal lines and laws of inheritance, etc., which become important. So all she's saying that societies try to control women's sexuality, associating their sexual behavior with their group's honor. तो it means कि जो गांव है या tribe है or anything, so everybody feels responsible for the woman's sexuality. For example, I interviewed a girl from Balochistan for my film Pakistan Education and Women. So the girl from Balochistan said that she did not have a school in the village. So her father actually moved from the village so she could go to middle school, which means she could study grade 6, 7, 8 onwards. And she succeeded in doing metric, which means completing grade 10. And after that, she got a job in Balochistan near her village, because in Balochistan you don't have schools, you don't have offices, so many NGOs are working there. So the girl actually was hired by an NGO, and when they hired her, they said that we will give you pick and drop. And the first day she went to her office, a van, van dropped her back to her house. And the minute she got off the van, the whole village actually ended up in her house, and they were sitting in her drawing room. And males were actually sitting in her drawing room asking her father why this van came to drop her back, and why she came in a van with somebody else, somebody who was not a member of the family, right? So father actually invited the daughter in the drawing room to answer the community, and then father was standing by her side telling them that her daughter had completed metric and was hired by an NGO which was doing or which was providing health services to people in their area. And the girl actually works at basic health unit in Balochistan. So she had to appear before the male community on demand of her father and explain to them why somebody had dropped her at the house. So it becomes a very interesting scene that whole community was taking interest and interest in her actions. And when the van came to drop her, everybody wanted to know if she was um, still honorable, and if she was keeping if she was controlling her own, if she wasn't doing anything bad. Okay, so it says that societies attempt to control women's sexuality by associating their sexual behavior with groups honor. And in this example that I mentioned, uh, obviously her community was feeling that her group's honor was perhaps uh, in question. So they wanted to know that she's not doing anything wrong. Honor has been prized as commodity in a number of collectivist societies, cutting across religious and class lines. So she's saying that people can use religion or even class can be used as a reason, because Hamida is very poor. And so in this case, she's cutting across both religious and class lines. An individual's behavior is less a reflection of his her character or honor in these societies than a reflection of groups character and honor. So uh, so women should be, not only are they honorable, they are in their bad performance actually has an impact on the names of their fathers and grandfathers. And that's not it, because she is also the mother. So she should maintain her honor, so she can respect names of, she can protect like respect of her fathers, grandfathers, and sons also, through her conduct, right? So she's saying that she is responsible for the unborn members as well. So she should maintain respect of her body for those unborn members who depend on her to keep the honorable status of her body. So family is quite important in collectivist societies. So collectivist societies do desire that uh, purity of bloodline is important. So it's a vital consideration and a symbol of honor and which explains the chastity of women. So, because the purity of bloodline is important, so that is why she's saying that woman maintains the respect of her fathers and sons through her sexual purity and chastity, right? So, so she's saying that women should keep their family's honor intact, and their sexual misconduct brings her sexual misconduct dishonors the society and the family and her son's name as much as it dishonors her father's name. So all it means, uh, she then mentions that in Pakistan we use this idiom: when wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost. When honor is lost, everything is lost. Which means this clearly explains how the concept of honor is believed to be rooted in tribal and feudal customs in the country, and how it goes on, that integrity, bravery is continuously linked with the modesty and sexual purity of women. So even integrity of men is uh, and bravery of men is connected to modesty and sexual purity of his family women, because their integrity and bravery is questioned if women get dishonored. So they have to, in A Girl in the River, the father attempts to kill his daughter because his integrity and bravery is questioned. If he and fairness is desired, and fairness demands that he should kill his daughter, and that's why he attacks his daughter, because she's required to be modest and she's required to maintain sexual purity, and by marrying Kesser, she actually challenges the norms and she has dishonored her family. Okay, any question? All right. So here she has just tried to explain why woman's behavior is linked with the honor of her family, and it happens throughout uh, South Asia, and immodest behavior is uh, connected to uh, sexual activity. So society actually questions woman's moral character, and when it questions woman's moral character, it taunts both her family over her shamelessness. Society ridicules the father and the brother over her shamelessness, and society ostracizes father and brother for the woman's shamelessness. And this translates into her not getting any marriage proposal from decent men once she is involved with somebody that society does not like. So it becomes a social stigma. So it's very clear that in Sabah Kasser's case, uh, it was linked to the social stigma, because Sabah Kasser actually challenged decency of her father through her love marriage with Kasser in A Girl in the River. Right, Sabah. So in all of these films that Sadaf was examining, she says a sexually pure body and honor or izzat intertwined with rape as an intimate act of violence. Okay? So these things are intertwined. Pure body is intertwined. Honor or rape is intertwined with acts of violence. So even on lack of consent, अगर कैरेक्टर ने जो हमने आई थिंक वी वॉच्ड द सीन earlier जिसमें we noticed that there was a lack of consent, right? So the attacker is attacking her without her consent. Okay, so she says lack of consent is no explanation right? So if there is lack of consent, even then she has to be punished, because many of the films would actually show that the minute a woman's body is stigmatized with rape, she would end up in brothel in case of Hamida, or in many cases you will find that Pakistani films actually, or Indian films actually show women hanging from the fan after they have been raped. So even innocent women end up with this kind of fate. The films give voyeuristic pleasure to the audience, to male audience, right? Even when they are reading news about such an incident in a newspaper, because people like to follow stories in the newspapers if these stories get published, right? So they are saying that people want to read these stories, or people want to watch uh, these stories even in news media, because rape is interesting and it is voyeuristic and people like watching it. So people desire that society should shun contact with the victim and victim's family. So until and unless victim's family punishes woman, or the woman commits suicide, uh, it's not respectful for for her or for the family, right? So it just says that violence is used to express a range of anxieties uh, that individual, uh, number one, individual challenges the status quo by crossing boundaries of race, gender, and class, right? So that it's extremely important that if she crosses the boundaries of race, gender, and class, and she raises anxiety in society. So this is a quote she has used from Projansky's article. She says that worst will happen to her, you know, if she has uh, if she has not remained in one's designated gender and class position, right? So this character, she has escaped the designated role, and all other characters that we have seen today, they escaped they were going outside the designated role and failed in maintaining the respect of their bodies, right? So these characters are then punish women, which means punish them for their waywardness, punish them for them through rape. So this kind of transgression is highlighted in Pakistani film upon women's sexuality issues, right? Any question? I think we do not have sufficient time. So the rest of the article actually says that sexuality never goes unpunished in Pakistani films, and rape is the standard punishment that is meted uh, when women have this kind of characters. I mentioned this film before. I said that Shabab Kiranvi in one of his films, it says 1976 film Naukar. Uh, in this film, Barbara and Zeba perform. So one night when Barbara does not return to her home at time, because Barbara is the life and soul of clubs, right? So please remember that we had clubs in Pakistan before Zia era, and Zia actually closed all these clubs. So Shamimara was, sorry, not Shamimara, Barbara was actually found at a club, and she was considered life and soul of the club. She dances with men, and one night she does not return on time, and she's at the club until very late. So a male member advances her and rapes her, and while at home her father keeps saying, kahin ye mera muh na kala kar de. So when she is raped, actually the father says कि इसने मेरा मुंह काला कर दिया. So that is the reason she's been talking about it, that men are punished and men perceive woman's honor as their honor, right? So, and lots of other vocabulary that is used in Pakistan on women's rape and honor issues, like I mentioned earlier, if honor is lost, everything is lost. Izzat ka janaza nikal gaya, izzat lut jana is are common terminologies that Pakistani films use. So the minute you say कि इज्जत लुट गई, it means the family also lost honor when the daughter lost honor, right? Uh, so she's saying that the father says this accident that will is the father is scared of any accident that will bring a stain on his honor, right? So when the daughter is raped, he feels कि उसका मुंह काला हो गया. So it is not just Fari's face, because when Fari is raped, the fiance withdraws their son's marriage proposal for Fari's sister Ruhi, because Zeba is engaged to somebody, and the boy's family, when they learn that Fari's sister, Zeba's sister, Ruhi's sister Fari is raped, they decide कि जी Zeba से शादी नहीं हो सकती of their son, because the family has lost honor and they do not want any association with the family whose daughter has lost honor. Sadaf just says that this kind of masala films are very popular, and female characters, for example, there is a character in the film film Tehzeeb, character's name is Chandni, and another character Momi in Playboy. Both of these actually show that failure of gender expectations, right? And women who fail to perform their roles as mothers or wives, or they fail to regulate their behavior, everyday behavior and sexuality, and they are made responsible for maintaining family unity in a patrilineal and patriarchal society. So, any question? Okay. So all she says that bourgeois cultures actually blame women who are liberal, and because too liberal to care about their honor. All films thus engage in blaming the victim. So Fari was a character who appears liberal as she goes to clubs and dances in clubs with men. So when she's too liberal to maintain her honor, thus she is accordingly punished. She
ये काफी common character use किया जाता है even in dramas के when they have to show a bad woman कि एक औरत गलत है और उसका character खराब है और किसके in general she has bad characteristics, तो दिखाते हैं कि वो liberal है, she works and she goes out, वो घर में नहीं रहती, वो family oriented नहीं है और उसके कपड़ों पे काफ़ी ज़्यादा वो focus करते हैं उसकी working life पे और इस तरह की चीज़ों पे. तो ये character काफ़ी ज़्यादा use किया जाता है usually movies और dramas में, ताकि वो उनको एक like they equate liberal to bad woman.
अच्छा, yes, very right. अच्छा, यहाँ पे उसने good women को वो कह रही है कि films actually protect good women from all kind of harm. तो उसने यहाँ example दी है, film का नाम है Zid, right? And in Zid, a good woman actually ends up in a brothel, right? And the woman's character's name is Farvi. They're saying that while Farvi is in a brothel, जो दूसरे characters हैं, Farvi constantly resists many attempts of rape, right? And Farvi keeps on saying my body can break into pieces, but it cannot become impure, right? So despite being in a brothel, uh, she's protected, and she keeps on saying, "Bula apni taakat ko," and she stays safe. She says that in Zid, there are at least a few different attempts to rape Farvi in the brothel, but she stays safe all the way through. So film is actually saying, okay, if you're a good woman, your body will stay impure no matter what. And then it says, in Daku Rani, uh, the policeman who is attempting to rape the protagonist says, "Bula apni taakat ko," right? So policeman is trying to rape uh, Daku Rani, but she keeps on saying, uh, चमड़ी उतर सकती है कपड़े नहीं, right? So she's saying that then all of a sudden azan की आवाज आना शुरू हो जाती है, and when the azan begins, the person who is trying to attack her stops attacking her. So even if the policeman was the rapist, he at least respects azan. So azan is used to, protect Farvi, who keeps on telling him, "Ke you can't make my body impure." So she's basically saying that good women are protected. Or in this last part on the fate of rape victims, she just says that films do not. Films actually show that if a woman's body is dishonored, that films actually end up killing women in many cases. And even if the film was showing a prostitute whose business it would be, the film would actually show her suffering from some serious disease in the end, like film would show her suffering from cancer or some other disease. And by doing this, the film will actually prove that bad bodies or bodies that cannot maintain their honors are actually punished. So a prostitute will be punished through cancer, and in the end, even if she was praying even if she was offering 5 times prayers, she would suffer from cancer in the end and die, which will show that if you can't maintain honor of your body, uh, you'll die. And if the victim was innocent and raped, film would actually show that she hanged herself with the fan, or she jumped into a well to protect the honor of her family. Death is not the rule, as it seems to be in Pakistani film that were viewed for the study. She's saying the raped women do die in some Indian films, but in Dushman, the raped woman does not die, right? So she's saying that not all Pakistani films are showing raped women die. Uh, there would be probably Dushman 1998 that actually did not kill the raped character or the woman who had not lost her honor in this situation. But in Indian films, that women who lost their body definitely die. Ji.
Ma'am, this movie by Shoaib Mansoor called Varna, that also like showed that the woman who was raped did not die, and in fact she took the revenge of her rape from the rapist. So like I think that Shoaib Mansoor has been like showing movies, like he's been making movies that are very less problematic, because he's changing the cinema. Like the Varna movie was like, it was not appreciated as much as Bold was.
It's a 2017 film, right?
Yes.
So it's a 2017 film, and Sadaf published her article before 2017.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So
Yes.
her sample had films up till 2011, from 1947 till 2011. So she mentions Shoaib Mansoor's Khuda Ke Liye,
Yes.
and she
Khuda Ke
mentions Shoaib Mansoor's bowl in the article.
Bowl. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because she says that in most films showed that women are victims and men are rapists, except Shoaib Mansoor's bowl. That shows that a transgender is also raped. She said that men may be raped too, but the samples did not have a male's rape at all. And Varna is a 2017 film, so you can say that this film is produced after, uh, after the article was published. Otherwise, I think if she's including two of Shoaib Mansoor's film, she could have definitely included his 2017 film as well. So all she's saying that women's honor is connected to sexually pure body in Pakistani culture, and if body does not remain sexually pure, a violated body is an impure and dishonored body that would lead to prefer death or rape. Death or rape, or in case of rape, also death. राइट तो ये उसने ये डायलॉग यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है, जे तेरी इज्जत दा खून हो गया ते तू जीते जी मर जाएगा. राइट, सो दिस इज खून हो गया. तो ये नदीम मेल इज लिसनिंग टू दिस कमेंट इन भूल, सॉरी, in a situation. The film's title is Mukhda 1988, जिस पंजाबी फिल्म है, and a gang attacks his sister. तो Nadeem, when he's running, so Nadeem is the brother of the woman who is attacked by the gang, and his mother says, तेरी इज्जत का खून हो गया तो तू जीते जी मर जाएगा. मतलब even if the woman commits suicide or woman dies in the film, mother is saying here कि तुम्हारी मेल का यानी brother की इज्जत का जनाजा निकल जाएगा. So that's why she is saying that society actually desires that males play an important role in controlling women's sexuality and mobility. यहाँ पे ये कह रही है कि इन मूसा खान comment ये है कि for a Muslim girl, honor is more important, more valuable than her life. तो Musa Khan actually shows a character जिसको the enemy is pulling the female character to insult the family, and the father जो है actually throws a dagger on the daughter while the enemy is pulling away the daughter. So the father kills the daughter from a distance and apologizes to her daughter, justifying his action कि बेटी तुम्हारी इज्जत जो है, for a Muslim girl, izzat is more valuable than life, so that's why I have killed you to save your izzat. And we may have heard of it that during partition and at several different occasions women were murdered or women jumped into wells to save their izzat as well. So you can say that these films often emphasizes that in case, and we have also heard that many Sikhs were also killing their family women in war situations because they preferred that women be murdered over being abducted by the enemy, right? So it just says that when a female body faces any kind of threat to honor, men of the family actually decide to kill them because it's important for saving respect of the family. Okay, G, any question or any comment? All right, it says कि यहाँ पे ये सलाखें की उसने एग्जाम्पल दी है जहाँ पे a raped woman is giving birth to a child. So सलाखें actually shows that the woman dies during childbirth, right? So which means कि she had to die in any way. It was important for restoring respect of the family. The minute the raped woman dies, uh, for whatever reason, that restores the death of the family. Um okay, in Ek Guna or Sahi, Julie dies of tuberculosis, or in Society Girl. Society Girl was a very famous film. So Julie dies of tuberculosis in uh, Society Girl. Afshan dies during childbirth in Ek Guna or Sahi, and in Salakhe Abda dies because of lung cancer. So basically, rape-based films can actually find a resolution, this kind of resolution, in testimony to the strength of the ideology of women's sexuality around the narrative of honor, right? She says just innocent characters are also not allowed to continue to live post-rape in post-rape circumstances, because they are also considered bad for the family uh, once they face rape. Okay, so narrative is constructed around death, uh, even if they are rape. Okay, so in the end, she only says that these films do have double standards in the way that they don't have any solution for the attacker. They never punish attacker, so they only punish women, right? So it just says that in Playboy, Mommy was dancing with men. So if the film punishes Mommy for dancing with men, the film punishes Mommy with rape. So why not punish her dance partner as well? Because male was also dancing with her, right? So only why does only the female characters face the punishment? So she's saying that film never show any solution for the treatment of the attacker, and Chandni dies, or Julie dies, or Abda dies in these films mentioned. So what about the attacker or their partners who were equally present in those sinful situations, or were their partner in those sinful situations? Okay, G. So in the end, she's just saying that women's rape is an effective tool of war, because it has the potential to demotivate or humiliate the enemy. Uh, well, in a situation, she's just saying that war films may also use woman's body to humiliate the enemy. I mentioned that Sikhs used to kill their women. और वो कौन सी फिल्म है, बड़ी पॉपुलर इंडियन फिल्म थी अभी इन पास टू, पद्मावत, राइट? सो इन पद्मावत वो जो आखिर में जो रस्म है ऑफ बर्निंग विमेन, देन being arrested by the enemy, it just also says so that they are trying to kill women just to save women's honor, because they feel that enemy will use woman's body to humiliate them. So women should die before the enemy can capture them, or use them or rape them to humiliate their men or community or culture. खत्म हो गया, और anything, just that films produce binary of good bad women, and they focus on pre and post rape experiences, and like projecting women who are good, and they are rewarded. Okay, so in the end she's just saying that how many rape scenes were registered in Pakistan until 2014. 326 gang rapes and 3,243 rapes, and she just feels that somehow they are connected to creating culture of rape. मुख्तारा माई को भी इसी रेफरेंस में वो कह रही है कि म्यूचुअली like good woman, bad woman binary is mutually exclusive, and they are rewarded accordingly, or these portrayals actually exaggerate the representations, but films always pick up a particular story or a particular instance, so that's what you would normally see. Thank you. I'm sorry मैं आपको break नहीं दे सकी. We only have 20 minutes left. कोई बात करनी है, कोई question करना है तो you can certainly ask. Otherwise, I think I'll let you guys go.
Miss, there's someone in the group, WhatsApp group में वो कह रहे हैं कि अगर ये क्लास की रिकॉर्डिंग हुई है तो वो पोस्ट कर दें गूगल क्लासरूम पे, क्योंकि कुछ लोगों का नेट नहीं चला था सही से तो वो क्लास इतना अटेंड नहीं कर पाए.
All right, I will post it definitely, and I think if people can hear it, I can mark their attendance. But I have to know. बाद में attendance लग नहीं सकती, same day लग सकती है. So we should try to attend all the classes. Only that I would know that people have heard the recordings. Post मैं कर दूँगी, right? So I think I'm not marking attendance in this class. Okay, 10% marks are for class participation, and class participation does not mean attendance only. It does mean discussions during the class. So it's very important that people talk while we are discussing issues, because 10% marks are for class participation. Okay. All right, thank you. I'll post so they can hear, and if they have a question, they can certainly ask in next class. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. Take care. Hafiz.